Okay, a very good afternoon, everyone. Day by day, participation in the class is reducing. Yesterday, we only have, I think, 7 or 8 participants. Today, we have again 7 or 8 participants. Reason might be that I am sharing videos, but if you're thinking these classes are not important, then it might be some mistake you are doing. If everyone will do like this, that they will skip the class, then to whom I. Okay, so today we have a next part. Yesterday we did up to the descriptive parts, how we describe categorical variables and how we describe these quantitative variables. We use graphical tools and mathematical. Okay, sorry for this voice. This is from my outside from my house. Okay, so next we have a probability. But yes, first, why probability means we are doing this course and for this research purpose, right? That when we have a data, we have to do some analysis. We have research questions, we have a hypothesis related to that, we have data, we try to find associations and all. So is there any need to study probability in between, or we can jump directly to the correlation regressions or other statistical tools? And if not, then why in economics course from graduation, I think, yeah, from graduation, even in the +1 and +2 mathematics, we have this probability. So why we study probability means, especially, is there anything related to the research? And what is the, you might have find that in graduation and in post graduation, you always have a two separate units on probability in your syllabus in statistics course. One is on the probability and one probability and distributions, and one is on the hypothesis testing. The only thing is, but I found that mostly teachers won't provide these linkages between these units. Like in micro units, how we teach? First, we teach the consumer units, that how consumer behave. Then we teach producer behavior, how producer behave. And then by equilibrium, by law of demand and supply, we try to find the relation that how things are interrelated with each other. But I rarely found that statistician teachers teach in like this particular manner. In near future, you might be going to a teacher in university or colleges, or might be research assistant. But especially if you are going to be a teacher, it's my sincere request, and to all those who will watch these videos, that you have to provide the linkages between these units and topics. Otherwise, students, like when I was studying these courses, it was tough for me to find relation between these units, because I know that these are 4 units I have to prepare for the final exam, but why they are interrelated and why they are in the syllabus, that particular information always missing in our courseworks. Might be in few good university they provide this, but hardly, as far as my experience, or even the textbooks I am reading, standard textbooks I am reading, they won't provide this linkages. But yes, if you see the chapter wise, that how they provided the sequence of chapters, then there is a sequence between them. So that's one important point. And if you got those answers, then you will definitely get this. Probability is very important for this particular statistical analysis. And why it is important, that I'll try to answer today or on Monday. For tomorrow, I have a one homework assignment for you. So I won't take class tomorrow. So you will do that assignment. And that's really interesting. Only one simple question I'll ask you, and you have to try to answer for that particular question. And that question comes like, okay, so just in brief, I'll tell you probability in a routine life, why it's important. Example, I have taken this from the my course set. What is the probability you will share information related to this to series to your friends? What is the probability you will subscribe my channel? What is the probability you will share that with others? Everything is like chances and likelihood. What will the probability that I'll do it again next year? Everything in between trials, outcomes, and events. Means in our day-to-day routine life, our decisions based upon the chances and the past experiences. Based upon that, we calculate few likelihoods about the future outcomes and we take decisions. One simple example I give you, after 10th and 12th, when we choose the particular course, we always link it with the future outcome, that whether I'm going to get a better job or not. For example, you might be in IIT. So why I selected IIT? Because obviously you have calculated this calculation that if I do PhD or one particular course from the IIT, then in future I will get a one good job. How you know you will get that good job or not? From the past experience from the other students or the past students of IITs. Oh, sorry, screen is not shared. Okay. Okay, let's just I was on the first second slide. This one. That how probability we will use in day-to-day routine life. Then I'll come to the statistical research part. This for me as a student, if any topic I am studying in my master's or in graduation or even PhD, if it's not linked to day-to-day routine life, then I don't find that particular course useful. That's the way I select my courses. Because while we teach in university and colleges, if we are not able to link those particular topics with the day-to-day routine life, because this whole social science concept is based upon the decisions we take in our day-to-day routine lives. And then with the academia, we try to find some generalize it. That's we call equilibriums and all these theorems. But the background is that you have to link that with the day-to-day routine lives. So in day-to-day routine lives, this probability, likelihood, chances are everywhere, and we answer in these particular formats. Like I already given in the previous examples, that the medical sciences, the doctor always say the chances are to survive after this particular treatment or not. Use this, and for them, these chances they comes from their studies, past experiences, how much the chances you have to survive. Similarly, in our day-to-day routine decisions, we have always take this. For example, this series, I took this risk, right? Might be there was chances that none of you will join this series, or might be I have expected that at least 40 or 45 students join, but only 10 and 15 students had joined. So will I will do it, or next year I will not do it? Means all these simple question answers are based upon chances and likelihoods. Similarly, you have the same things in your life. So in statistics, this is again example that this skiing activity, they took a high risk, like, but how they took this high risk? Because they know past experiences that if they do practice every day and they have this experience, they might got successful in their activity. So they take a risk based upon the probabilities of past experiences. Another example, it was not that directly we reached to the Mount Everest. Means if one will go to the Nepal and they try to reach to Mount Everest, it's not possible. We need some training, right? We need some background. Means one would have started there in the past some adventures, expeditions, and with the experiences we have reached to the Mount Everest. So things are based upon like that. We took risks, and when we get successful, then we do next activity, then third and fourth. Means stepwise progress is always there, but the probability, chances, and outcomes are everywhere. Now, if I'll come to our question that yesterday we did up to the descriptive stats, right? Now, this is the importance question. The only reason I am taking this separate session on the probability is to find answer to this particular question and this particular situation. Otherwise, this is not our mathematical course, right? That we will do calculations of probabilities, we do numerical and some that's not at all. The only thing, your decisions in statistical analysis have some parameters, whether you have to whether you have to accept those results or you have to reject those results. And there are parameters. For those parameters, there are few concepts or few things which come from the probability only, and that link you have to find out. And this is your assignment. The 50% answer I'll give you today, and 50% you have to find, and then Monday we will discuss it again. You might think that this is not important, but let me give you an example that how important it is. While you do PhD, you are writing research paper or you are doing any research assistant job. So far, we only did descriptive stats, right? Mean, variances, and the categorical frequency distributions. So far, you can leave this correlation and regression. Suppose we did some study on the samples. We always do studies on sample because on population, it's too costly, time consuming, it's not possible. How we do accept those results? For that, we have this hypothesis testing, right? Means you do hypothesis testing. If you based upon your null and alternate, you take the decisions. While you take a decision based upon hypothesis testing, you follow distributions. Like the examples I have given, Z, T, F, chi-square. These are the basic distribution. There are so many other distribution in statistics, but these are what we teach in graduations, masters, and our in general routine research works. We use these distributions only because we use these kind of data sets more frequently as compared to other kind of data sets. So we calculated the frequency, mean, and median, and now we have to take decision whether we accept the result or not. But to do that, we do hypothesis testing. Now, in hypothesis testing, you have these tables. Example I give you. This is just an hypothesis. Yeah, this is if it is visible. Just this Z table. You select values from this table for your particular degree of freedom, and then you will decide whether you accept null hypothesis or reject null hypothesis. True. This is the simple example I'm giving that how we do hypothesis testing. Another way is the p-value. And nowadays p-value we always use, and we don't do the traditional way of level of significance method or the acceptance region method. Now, confidence interval method, level of significance method, and the p-value. There's 3 different methods of hypothesis testing that we will do on Tuesday. That first I define how we do hypothesis testing, 3 different methods of hypothesis testing, and on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we will try to complete it Z, T, F, and chi, which we use most frequently in the descriptive statistics. So in between, there is something missing. That you did a calculation based upon your sample data, and that calculation of your mean, median, variance, which we did yesterday. And now you are taking a result based upon this table, right? This Z table. Now, from where these tables are coming? That's the only question I have, that either this Z, T, or F based upon the situation and the data. We will do this one by one. From where these tables are coming? And we never put a thought on it, although you took decision upon these tables that you accept and reject. It might be in PhD or in such paper, we thought that it is not possible, but it's possible. If you're doing seriously your research and you have one serious research question, you want to try to prove that this particular factor is important and have important significant impact on the another dependent variable. And if you took decision based upon these distributions, then why it is not important that you have to see the relation between these distributions, that from where these distributions are coming. That's the only purpose that we teach this in the statistics course in bachelor's and master's to economics students as well, or commerce students, because based upon these distributions, we took decisions. But the now questions come from where these distributions are coming. Means we didn't calculate this distribution, right? We are taking from the, nowadays we have a software, so we took a p-value. Otherwise, in textbook examples like we do in our classrooms, in the end of the book, we have this Z table and T table. We compare our results of this particular level of significance. We make a regions and then decide whether we have to accept or we have to reject the hypothesis. So this question of from where these values are coming is whatever this n number of values are here, change with the level of significance and with the degree of freedom, from where these values are coming, and why we took decision based upon these values. It might be T, F, chi, means that's not the question, but from where these values are coming, that's my question. And why we take decision based upon these values. This is the one question that we have to find answer before starting hypothesis testing process. And this is the one thing which I found missing in classroom teachings. I don't know why this is not in our syllabus, or if it is in the units, then why our teachers won't teach these things, that these are interlinked, and that's the only reason that you have this particular unit in your syllabus, so that student won't skip this chi-square, f and t based upon this assumption that in the end final exam we have a one optional question, out of two we have to attempt one question. So let me do z and t and skip the chi-square, or the vice versa. If they never realize this importance, that it's not that you by choice you have to skip this. All are important, and all you have to use while you do research work. And when it comes to PhD, the teachers assume that okay, you did in the masters and graduation, so you understand these distributions. But in bachelor and master, we skipped 50% part that I showed you in the first lecture, that this IBM method, how we do study. 50% we skip because we have this choice in the exam. So now the thing is, now you can answer from where these Z values are coming, and why we rely on these values. Nowadays we are using software. When in masters and graduation software is not there, then we use Z value from the end of the textbook, right? So who calculated these Z values, and why we rely on these values? Free from unit? No. Yeah, true, Z is free from unit, but that's not the reason we use this Z or T or F or chi. That's the one very indirect property of the Z. Yes, that's the unit free, but that's not the reason we use this Z, these distributions in hypothesis testing. And the one of my questions is from where these distributions are coming. And what these distributions are actually, because we rely on these distributions. Test of significance if the cause impact is random or not. No, there is a two technical answers. I need very basic layman so that one would who is studying first time, he can understand this thing. The first question is from where these Z values are coming. And second, why we rely on these Z values or T or whatever distribution you have to take final findings about our studies, that whether we accept our results or not. Means definitely we do this, right? In our research, we accept or reject based upon these values. So why we never bothered about this, that from where these values are coming and why we trust on these? Okay, everyone is doing it, our teachers are teaching this, but still at least we have to need something you have to know about this, that from where these values are and who calculated these values. Now software is calculating your p values, but prior to software, who calculated these distributions and why we are using these distributions? Anyone else? Yeah, Divya is trying to answer. Yeah, true. Assuming normal distributions, they calculate these values. that our data is normally distribution. Okay, that distribution value is of the normal distribution. Okay, true, Divya. Means that Z and all these values are based upon normal distribution. Also, there's a number of distributions. There is a cumulative density function like logit functions we use that's not normally distributed, means normal distribution of one of the distribution which we use maximum times in this Z and T case. Then the question is uh, why we calculated these distributions? Yes, we did calculate this Z distribution is based upon normal distribution. Why we calculated this distribution? Why we calculate this distribution? To capture the behavior of sample parameters? No, not at all. Different parameters follow different distributions. Yeah, true, but why these distributions? Yeah, that's true. The variance, no, variance follow F distribution, not the chi distribution. But why these distributions? I'm asking. Why we calculated this Z distribution, T distribution, F distribution, chi-square? Any of this, why we have done at the first place? Well, yes, true, to know a very probability that our sample estimate lie in some confidence interval. Yes, true. This is the confidence interval came for hypothesis testing. And here it comes that probability. To know the probability that our sample estimate lies in some confidence interval. And that confidence interval is from the population. This Z distribution is about this standardized normal curve, right? We do this difference from the mean and division from the standard deviation standardized. So we found this one uniform distribution so that we do some hypothesis based upon some one common distribution. Otherwise, we have to calculate n number of distribution. For example, this probability formula. This formula is for the normal distribution, continuous data, right? So if you have continuous data, you want to calculate the probabilities, you can use this formula. Similarly, we have a separate formula for binomial distribution. We have a separate formula for Poisson distribution. But to make it easy, the statisticians helped us a lot. They give us a one uniform distribution so that we can do n number of sample size calculations, their hypothesis testing with one common distribution. But to calculate that distribution, probability is required, right? And these formulas are based upon probability. These are the probability distributions. And what is probability distribution? Like I give you an example. Suppose this is the situation that I'll come to in detail about the probability, but just to give you a hint that what distribution these distributions are. Suppose this is the one particular experiment that we want to find a number of heads showing face up on 3 tosses of a coin. So these are the possible number of outcomes. And for this particular situation, we have this probability if we do these calculations. But this number of heads 0, 1, 2, 3 in 3 tosses of a coin, this will become the probability distribution. So this is just an example of the distribution. Now, similarly, we have this Z distribution, but that Z distribution is not for a specific situation. Like here we have a situation of tossing a coin. 3 times or 4 times. This Z distribution is for n number of experiments. I mean, this is this, if you see the degree of freedom, it starts from 0 to infinity, right? But after a certain level, values won't change with significantly. So we use whatever the nearby values are there. So this distribution they have calculated based upon a level of significance and n, and they have calculated all the values for all the possible outcomes. So that whatever situation you have, because your sample size vary, right? Your level of significance vary. So with your level of significance and your degree of freedom, you can find this particular common value. So they did this calculation, and this calculation they did before the computers. If I'm right about this, so much I have this knowledge about the statistics literature. They did these calculations before the computers, and then by the time all started using these values. Nowadays we have p-value that's only possible with the programmings. That's not possible to calculate manually with the calculators. But earlier they did this calculation, and this calculation was based upon the distribution of probability distributions for continuous type of data. Like this Z distribution is a normal distribution, and this is for the continuous random variables, not discrete random variables. So this distribution we will use for the hypothesis. Similarly, we have a T, F, and chi, because their nature of variable is different, so their distribution is also different. That depends upon the nature of variables. So in between, the more important is probability, that these are the probability distributions. And to understand this, at least we have to have some basic idea about the probability. And the another reason I want to take just 30-40 minutes on the probability, so that one who doing first time, we can at least understand some basic about the probability. And if in any near future, if you are going to teach this probability, at least there are few 4 or 5 things you have to teach to your students, so that it will become easy to understand the probability. Otherwise, it's too much confusing every time. Many students struggle with the probability concepts. So in probability, now your homework is still remains same. You have to find this charts of sequence, that how this Z table or these distributions help us to get a conclusions based upon hypothesis testing. Means how this distribution values they are coming. What is the process of these Z values? From where these values are coming? You have to write this in a sequence. That what the first thing we have to do, if let's suppose we have to do this manually, so how we do it? So what will be the first step, second, third, and fourth? And then in the hypothesis testing, we will discuss it, that how we use these Z distributions in a hypothesis testing process. So first part is to understand from where these values are coming, how we calculate, so that we get this confidence that whether we rely on these values or not. Or is there any other way to do the hypothesis testing? Like I will give you one another example. Whenever we study this econometrics course in masters and bachelor's honors, all the time you are taking in the null hypothesis, the beta parameter, the slope coefficient or the intercept coefficient equal to 0, and in null you take it's not equal to 0, right? This is the way we do this hypothesis testing in the regression. The question is, why 0? It's in null hypothesis, we say 0 only, not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, any other number, only 0. 99% due to 0. And the way, these are the few tricks actually, these strategies, or they are the simple solutions they have gave to us, so that we can move further and we can take some decisions. Otherwise, it will become subjective based upon the individual to individual, that whether they will rely on their sample studies or not. So these were few problems when they faced in the earlier phases, and they gave us a simple solutions. But these simple solutions, if let's suppose one do first time, you don't have any solutions. But now we have, because one or the other researchers or the earlier statisticians or the econometricians, they provide us these indirect solutions, so that we will do our job with much easier way, and we will get to some conclusions. So the probability, in probability, only the thing which I want to describe is that if you know the difference between experiment outcome and event, and mutually exclusive events and independent events, that's more than sufficient if one wants to understand the probability and their calculation methods. Only confusing thing is that while we do students in the graduation, they cram the formulas and the patterns of the questions because they won't get this difference, that what is difference between the mutually exclusive and independent events. And probability classical formulas are based upon this, either mutually exclusive events or independent. These are the only two different ways we do calculations in the probability. But in between, these three terms we always use: experiment or the trial, outcome, and possible events. So this is the example. For example, let me give a basic definition. Experiment is a process that leads to the occurrence of one and the only one of several possible observations. Okay, now this is your assignment. In this Z distribution, these are the probability outcomes, right? And this Z is the area under the curve because it's a continuous distribution. So we can't have a one discrete value. So this is the area under the curve. So you have to tell me that what is the experiment in that particular probabilities. They are probabilities, right? So if we are calculating probability, then definitely there might be an event, outcome, and particular experiment. So you have to find what is the experiment there. You have to name that. What is the experiment in that Z distribution T or any other distribution? What are the outcomes? You have to tell me that in that Z distribution, the values, what are the outcomes? An event. Because when you do particular hypothesis testing, that's based upon your particular level of significance with n number of sample size observations or your degree of freedom. So you have a particular situation, right? And for particular situation, we do a particular analysis. So you have to just write one example of event, outcome, and experiment. Most important is this experiment. That what is the experiment in that Z distribution or chi distribution? The example is here. For example, if we roll a die, then these are the possible outcomes. You may observe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the possible events are what? Events are generally a collection of one or more outcomes of an experiment. It might be one single outcome, or might be a collection of 2 or 3 outcomes. So that's called event. For example, in this case, observe an even number. In even number 3 even numbers are there in this particular roll a die experiment. This is the kind of one event. So this is the one difference you have to know. This is the sequence. A random phenomena consists of trials. When you study the distributions, this we always study with the random variable, right? The probability distributions are of the random variables or random experiments. Then each trial has an outcome. If there is no outcome, then there is no experiment. Definitely we have outcomes. And the last, outcomes combines to a make event. If you combine one or two, more than two or more than two outcomes, that called event. This is the classical way of calculating probability, classical probability method, that number of favorable outcomes depend upon total number of favorable outcomes. In numerator, number of favorable outcomes for a particular event based upon the outcomes, and in denominator, all the total number of favorable outcomes. This is a very basic example, this dice one, that in this case even number 3 numbers. So if we divide it with the total possible outcomes, then your probability is 0.5. More than that, the important thing is, now you will tell me the difference between mutually exclusive events and independent events. Because if it's an independent event, we will apply the formula of multiplication of two different events, right? If it's a mutually exclusive event, we will follow the addition rule. So now it's important that how we identify whether it's independent events or mutually exclusive events. Because all other calculations probability are depend upon this mutually exclusive and independent. And I'll tell you this in the Z distribution or any other distribution, this thing is important. And this you have to answer on Monday, that how it matter for that Z distribution, that those probabilities are mutually exclusive or independent. If one happens, other can't happen. Other cannot happen, mutually exclusive. And tossing of the same coin twice is mutually exclusive, whereas two different coins is independent. No, Nishat, wrong. Lavanya partially correct. If one happens, the other cannot happen, which is exclusive. But what is all about it? Means what is in the background? Yes, true, Lavanya. If one happens, the can't not happen. Suppose you are teaching this particular thing, and how you differentiate with your students that how they can make difference between mutually exclusive events and independent events. Independent may happen together. Anyone else? Divya? I think Divya have answered to this question.
Sir, like if I'm rolling a dice, then if number one comes up, then all other numbers, like if one is coming, then two, three, four, they are mutually exclusive. Like if one is appearing, then all other will not appear.
True, but we are saying we have to addition rule, right? So it means,
Yeah.
so it's about more than one thing, right? The basic difference is
Okay.
in independent events, you have a two trials at least. At least you have two trials. Like if you toss a coin two times, then you are doing experiment or trial at two times. Then we call this independent. That's a secondary question whether they're dependent or independent, but you have a more than one experiment. In mutually exclusive case, it's all about the outcomes. Even trial is one. Like you are giving the example that if you're rolling a dice, if one appears, two, three, four, five, six will not appear because you are rolling a die at one time, right?
Yes, sir.
So it's about the one time outcome. It's mutually exclusive is about the outcomes. If you are doing a trial at one particular, only one time, then it's about the outcomes. Where if one outcome will appear, other outcomes will not appear. That's we call mutually exclusive. But independent is about more than one experiment. Within an independent experiments, outcomes again it might be mutually exclusive. For example, I'll toss a coin two times. Then whatever outcome, if in the first case outcome will be head, then in the second case again it might be head or tail that is not related each other. That's we called independent. But that's about the experiment. That outcome of the second experiment doesn't related to the outcome of the first experiment. But in the mutually exclusive case, we only have a one experiment and events are about the outcomes. So if, and another simple example I'll give you, the probability of all mutually exclusive outcomes is equal to 1. That's the probability area we follow, right? For the Z distribution, the total area is 1, probability is equal to 1. and that's the property, and that's the property we use with this standard deviation properties, that if it's a normally distributed data, then plus minus 1 cover the 68% area of the normal distribution, plus minus 2 standard deviation cover the 95% of the area of this normal distribution, and 3 standard deviation cover 99% of area of the distribution. And based upon these informations, you take this 1%, 5% level of significances, that how much chance you have to take between, how much trade-off you can do between type 1 error and type 2 error, which we will do on a detail in Wednesday, that what is all about the significance and type 1, type 2 error. So for that, this property is important, that this Z distribution outcomes are mutually exclusive outcomes, and that's the reason that total is equal to the 1. And that's the indirect way you do in classrooms, that you find the area whenever it comes to continuous normal distribution. You won't calculate based upon this formula. You always do this indirect method, area under the curve, right? You always divide this area based upon the situation, and you get a probability. So that's about the mutually exclusive. Means there is only one experiment, and within experiment, the outcomes are mutually exclusive. So I hope now it's clear. Take a just example. This one. An automatic show machine fills plastic bags with a mixture of beans, broccoli, and vegetables. Most of the bags contains the correct weight, but because of the variation in the size of the beans and other vegetables, a package might be underweight or overweight. A check of 4,000 packages filled in the past month revealed underweight 100 packages, satisfactory 3,600, overweight 300. So let's suppose if we have this event, what is the probability that a particular package will be either underweight or overweight? Generally in +2 mathematics, we do this with the intersection and combination, that if you have or, then you have to use the intersection, if you have a and, then you have to combination. So this is the OR case. Of OR case is always about the mutually exclusive outcomes. For example, in this particular case, the A underweight, if it's underweight, it has nothing to do with the, it means if it's underweight, then it's not possible it will be satisfactory or overweight. But it is about within a one experiment, right? Not a two experiments are here. And if it's overweight, then it's not underweight or satisfactory. So it's a mutually exclusive outcome. But if we have a two, like this, okay, this one, yeah, independent events. The outcome of one event does not affect the outcome of other. So it is not that within a one experiment or within a one event, the n number of outcomes. No, the outcome of the one event does not affect the outcome of the other. And generally these things are about the trials, that whatever outcome you have in the first trial won't affect outcome of the another trial. It means at least it need two experiments. If it's a one, then there is no question of independent events, because within a one, the outcomes are either mutually exclusive or not mutually exclusive. This one is the example of not mutually exclusive. This we do with this Venn diagrams, that if there is some common intersection part, then the rule is we have to subtract that. But this thing is not in the Z distribution, because whatever all the probabilities there are, this area under the Z curve, that is those, if in the Z distribution you see those values are based upon this mutually exclusive property. They are not, that's not about the independent, that's about the mutually exclusive property. That's only reason that in totality you have a probability of 1. In case of dependent event, then the outcome of one particular outcome of one experiment depend upon the another. For example, in this case, in classroom text examples, we have this cards example, that if you have this heart of this particular color, and if you want to repeat it or want to put it back in the box, then next time what will the probability? Similarly, this is the one example. Let us the problem with 10 rolls of film in a box, 3 of which are defective. 2 rolls are to be selected. Now here they are selecting 2 rolls, right? It's not a 1. So if it's more than 1, then now it comes to the case of independent or dependent. At least it needs to be more than 1. 2 roles are to be selected. So now the experiment is more than 1. So whenever experiment is more than, then and then only it comes to the question whether it's independent or dependent. If it's a 1 only, then the case of mutually exclusive or not mutually exclusive. Of course, that outcomes are within one particular experiment. 2 roles are to be selected, one after the other. So what is the probability of selecting a defective role followed by another defective role? The first roll of film selected from the box being found defective in event 3 out of the 10 are defective as given in this particular situation. Selecting a row, second roll, it is defective only 2 by 9 because it's not a recurring event that once we have selected this particular box, found it, we are not putting it back. So next time the probability will depend upon the outcome in the first particular experiment or trial. So if this is the situation, then we have a situation of dependent events. But this dependent and independent question won't come when we have the Z distributions because area under the curve is equal to 1, and that's only possible when we have a mutually exclusive outcomes. More important than that is the basic rules that we all know, 0 to 1. But 0 to 1 is only possible when you have mutually exclusive outcomes. Otherwise, it's not possible. For example, okay, again, go to textbook example. Yeah, this one. These are the 0, 1, 2, 3. These out of this all possible combinations, these probabilities for this particular outcomes or event 0, 1, 2, 3 of head are these as it is calculated 1.2, 3.37, 0.37 and 1.2. And if we combine all these, its probability is equal to 1. And if we plot these as per the probabilities, these distributions, then it we call as a probability distributions. Now, if it's a normal distribution, if it's a continuous random variable, then question is of the normal distribution. If it's a binomial in nature, then we have a binomial distribution. If there are rare events, then we have a Poisson distribution. Similarly, we have this cumulative density functions that we use in logistics. So there are different type of distributions based upon your experiments or the events. Next, yeah, already I had explained this, that notation alert that you have to add if it's a case of mutually exclusive, you have to multiply, and or and add. And means if we are trying to fix both the conditions, right? Then we have to multiply. If we are adding the conditions, then you have to add it. The probability set of all possible outcomes must be 1. Then this is a complement rule that if anytime we want to know the probability of not occurring that particular thing, then we can just subtract it from the 1 because we know that 1 is the total probability. For a simple example, yes, this 30 light cell lightning fixture. Some customer there only to browse. So Lee records the behavior of all customers for a week to assess how likely it is that a customer will make a purchase. He finds that of 1,000 customers entering the store during a week, 300 make purchases. He concludes that only 30% will make purchase. If probability of purchase is 30.30, what is the probability that customer doesn't make a purchase? So it's simply how we apply this complement rules. And if it's a independent event, then we have to apply multiplicative rule. Then we have to multiply. But remember, I think I have written here now. By multiplying the probabilities, the final number, whatever you come, like here, this 0.112. Since this probabilities total is 1, right? So it's not possible that any particular event, the probability will be more than 1. So if we have a numbers in fraction, so this is mathematical probability that if you multiply two fractional numbers, the final outcome will be lesser than their original values. For example, in this case, 0.035 multiplied 0.035.12. It means if I will look upon the individual probability of a customer that he will do a purchase or not, it was 35% or 30%. But if I'm putting one more condition that, okay, two customers are coming and whether they will buy or not, their probability is not a 30%. Their probability is only 0.1. I'm just thinking hypothetically that their probability is now only a 0 point. So what it means? It means the more the number of conditions you will put together in a one particular event for more than two trials, the total final outcome or final probability for that particular event will get reduced. So it's in simple life. For example, I would say that I approach two students individually. So let's suppose I have this probability that there are 0.01 chances that they will adopt my course. Now, second time I approach two students or two sisters. Now the probability is not more than the first one or even equal to the first one. It's much less because they get now multiplied. So this is something when you have a mutually exclusive probability, the probabilities will increase. But if you have independent events, then probabilities get reduced. So in mutually exclusive, we do something addition. In multiplication, it will get reduced because we are putting more and more conditions. Yeah, in this example, this purchase one, now for two customers, it's only 0.09. Earlier for one customer, it was at least 30%. Multiply, reduce the chances. Now this again, the same addition rule. I think we don't need to do it again. Okay. This one is again another example of the exclusive event that there are 9% chances that customers would buy and 30% chances that customer make purchase when they enter the store. So what is the probability that who enters the store make a purchase either online or in the store? It is very common phenomena among the malls. Like in 2000, I think 8, 9, 10, when this mall culture get too much in the domain and stream in the metro cities, and in this 2016 and 17 onward, the sales of these malls is get reduced, and this corona was the peak for them and the loss of sales. So this is happened because of this internet market, right? Now we have this another option where you can buy anything from anywhere at your doorstep. So this was a major challenge for malls. Like I think biggest more malls we have in the Chennai and other metro cities. And now this year they are facing this problem. This is the example that mostly people see the things in malls and then they order online. So but these things are mutually exclusive, right? Because here the event is one that he'll buy or not, but on a one time. If this question is about two times, that if you have to shop two times, then it comes to the question that whether your second time buying behavior depend upon the first time or not. If it's not, then independent event depend the dependent events, but then now it's not a mutually exclusive. Like in this two customer case, at least two customers are there, right? More than one. So if it's always a experiment or trial more than one, then only this question comes whether it's a independent or not. Otherwise, either it's mutually exclusive or not mutually exclusive. So in the end, I won't take it too long today because I'm giving you this simple assignment that you have to find the link between you. So far we have done a descriptive stat, right? So descriptive stat to hypothesis testing. In hypothesis testing, we use these distributions. So based upon the probability and distributions, how we reach to those Z values? What is the experiment in those distributions? And whatever those values they have in the tables, what they actually describe, means from where those values are coming, how they calculated those values, so that when we do hypothesis testing, you at least you have this idea that why we are using those values and why we calculated those values, and why only we have one single distribution of n type of sample experiments. Means whatever sample study you do, we all follow this Z, T, and F, either this distribution or the p values. So why one common distribution, and how we find these common distributions? That logic you have to find, so that at least you can get some idea that why we study probability distributions and how important it is in our hypothesis testing. Why it's important, I am telling again and again, because after hypothesis testing, when you write this statement, whether your results are significant or not, that statements led you to a final conclusion, right? Whether you have to take a one particular step or not. Suppose you have in the commerce business, whether you have to do particular activity or not. Suppose you are in some planning department or government machinery where you are working to implement some scheme or something. You have to take this decision whether you have to do, how you do, what kind of changes are required. And those results are based upon this hypothesis testing procedures, whether you accept your results or reject your results. In writing, it's very easy that we write, okay, it significantly differ, significantly impact, or we reject it, that okay, it's not significantly impact, or our results are not, like we see this, that they are not significantly important because based upon the hypothesis testing. So you take final call based upon simple final those decisions, and those decisions you take based upon distributions. So at least you have to have some idea about those distributions, that from where those values are coming and why we are relying on those values. Is there any other way that we can cross check our results whether we rely or not? And if it's not, and if it's not, there is any other way, this is the only way we have to do, and why this is the only way we have to, what are the limitations that we only have this particular method? These new things we never try. This is what I think missing in our education system. Like we studied the mean median mode, right? Arithmetic mean, whatever in the literature. We not put a thought. Why not something new? Is there anything other thing possible besides mean which we can use for a central value? Or any other graphical presentation is possible. Just think those who design these things at the first place, if they always do like us, that okay, these are the traditional things, follow it and do our study, then nothing new comes anytime. This, we never discover anything new. So at least you have to put a thought that how they reached into these stages, and what was in the background, what was the limitations they faced, and if we are using it, so what was the process and what is the reason. That link only you have to find. If you got those results, then we will move forward for the hypothesis testing from Monday onward. Only I'll take one class on Monday about the distribution, normal distribution, because most of the distributions are like normal distribution. If one distribution we will understand, others are easy to understand. So before that, just this question. Okay, I hope you have now calculated 30. This is based upon this previous information, 30%. Similarly, okay, this one is the last thing. If you can try it. Canadian Blood Services has to track the supply of and demand for various blood types. It estimates that 46% of the Canadian population has type O blood, 2% A, 9% type B, and the rest type AB. So based upon this information, if a Canadian volunteers to give blood, what is the probability that this donor has type AB blood, has type A or type B blood, is not type B blood, O blood? And the next, among 4 potential donors, what is the probability? All are type O, none have type AB blood, not all are type A, at least one person is type B. So just try it out. And this is the only thing I want to teach today, because hypothesis testing I'll do next week. But this is again, you try to sort out it. Again, I'm coming back to my this previous question that how things are interrelated. It's the only important for me so far. These distributions, hypothesis testing, I'll tell you the process on Tuesday. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we will do this Z, T, and F by examples in Stata software, comparison of means, comparison of proportions, comparison of variances, why we use F test, when we use TZ, T test, when we use Z test, what is the difference between Z test and T test, chi-square we will do with the correlation of categorical variables. We do all these things. Just these 3 days, I'm leaving you with this simple question. You have to find this link from mean or whatever descriptive stat you had to this distribution values. Is how these distribution values are calculated. Whatever these values are, in all the textbooks we have the same values, right? They won't change. So whosoever is, please also try to find who did this calculation, and who give this particular formula. This formula we use normal distribution, right? Normal probability density function. This formula is I think Gaussian distribution function we call it. Then try to find who did this calculation first time, because this is the thing in our generation, including myself. We are not recognizing the efforts and the pain previous researchers and the scholars have taken and the results they are given to us, and how much easy now we have our job. We have the softwares and all things to take decisions, but those decisions based upon these statistical theories. So at least look upon it that who gave these values first time, who calculated these values, how they found this Z distribution, how they reached to this conclusion that okay, make a one distribution, Z distribution, and we can use it for any type of sample experiments based upon the nature of data. This testing depend upon nature of data. Means if we have a square variables, then chi-square. If we have variances, then we use F. Z and T is only the question of sample and standard deviation. If we know the standard deviation population, and if we have a large sample, we use Z, vice versa, then we use T test. So this is the only I'm giving you as homework. First, you have to find what is the experiment here, how they calculated these values. Why only we have these options means they did this job easy for us, that whatever sample study you have, you can follow this table. So how they reach to this conclusion that okay, make a one uniform distribution for all kind of studies, all kind of mutually exclusive outcomes, and those values we can use to select and reject our hypothesis. This is the only simple homework with I'm leaving you. On Tuesday and Monday onward, we do then with the Stata software. And this question, I hope now you have solved it. This is the only reason we study probability in statistical course. Otherwise, all of these calculations, these examples like we do in the classroom, this card example, box examples, that's not the concern here in our research purpose. Only concern is the probabilities of probability distributions. So this is the answer if you want to look upon. First was type AB. The simple is 1 minus P, not type AB. Second was OR case, so 1 minus, not. Third case, not typo. This is the first one. This is the second one. Now this is more than one, right? The second case is among 4 potential donors, right? So 4, it means now we have an experiment or trial 4 times. It's a case of independent events or dependent events. So now we apply multiply rule. Earlier we have only one. If a Canadian volunteers to give blood, what is the probability that this donor, talking about the only one particular donor, Then it comes the question of only mutually exclusive or not mutually exclusive. But if it's more than one experiment or trial, then it comes the question of independent. And this is the only simple difference the student miss in the classes, and they try to cram these formulas that, okay, if this type of question we have to apply multiply rule, if this type of questions then we have to apply addition rule. But if you know the difference, then it's easy to apply these rules. So I hope you have done this calculation. So besides that, anything else you want to discuss about this? Or it might be that you know these answers, but not taken it seriously, that why we use it, because it starts from the graduation. We teach these things in the courses. But the only thing I found is interesting that the two tricky answers statisticians give us. One, in the hypothesis testing, since you don't know the population outcomes, so to whom you compare. So rather than doing n number of combinations in null hypothesis, we do the zero experiment. That okay, let's start with the zero. Zero means it won't impact. If it's not zero, the vice versa, it will impact. How much impact, how much don't impact, that's not the question there. It's a zero or the otherwise. That's why in the, I think, Gujarati and other statistics books you read, they always write that write in a form of significant and write a word statistical significant. It won't give you a cause and effect relation in theoretical sense. Only our results are statistical significant, because we are using the statistics calculations and they are telling us is it true in the null hypothesis or the vice versa. So we compare in that particular sequence. So they always give us these precautions that write in this systematic. Many times I find that in interpretation we do a mistakes. We write about that this is the important variable and the other type of things, but that's, we can't write that. These are statistics calculations. We can only say it matter or not based upon statistical hypothesis testing we have done. So this is only simple things I want to discuss today. Correlation regression, I kept it separate for the second part because that is something about the association part. And if I'll go back to my previous slides where I described the statistical methodology that which we follow for our statistical analysis. And this one. So far we have done this data thing is you have to collect or use, identify, describe, and this probability and hypothesis testing is called inferential statistics, that based upon sample you take a decision about the population. So we rely on these results or not is something we have a probability in between. That's the reason we called it inferential statistics, and with the appropriate tools and methods. Association part is after descriptive parts always, that there's some sequence we have to follow. Anytime you're writing research paper or anything, you always have to follow this. First a descriptive part and then only you have to do an association part. So never mix it. If in your descriptive part you find something useful and you think things are looking associated, then only you have to jump to the association part. And after association, if you think the associations are so strong and there is something impact factor in between, then only we can jump up to a regression, that is called the impact of one on the another. So this is a particular sequence of things which we have to do. So in this sequence I am trying to do. So far we had done up to the describe for categorical quantitative data. In inferential, just I explained you the probability, that how this probability is decided. Other mathematical calculation won't impact our decision hypothesis testing, so I'm not going to in their details. So anything else you want to discuss so that I can end here, and Monday I see your answers. At least try to write it and put it in the Skype, this chat box, so that others can get idea that how you are doing. I hope you got my question, that what you have to do in these 3 days. You might got this answer in 1 hour or 2 answers, that's not, but this thing is very important. or your hypothesis. And in statistic, you always say 50% is inferential, 50% is your calculations.